Okay, so right now we're going through a sort of turbulent time in U.S. politics. You have the Republicans and the Democrats and everybody in between vying for a voice for their causes in the world of U.S. politics. And a lot of it's happening online. A lot of the new warfare isn't with bombs or with, guns. I don't consider any of these acts of violence to be political in nature. Even if there is a cover, even if politics is a reason, there is never a reason to create carnage. We are irrational beings, but we are not irrational enough to create wanton acts of violence, to manifest them into the physical, malleable world. We are stronger than that. We are human beings. We have agency. We always have control. But of course, we are also irrational. And there's never an excuse for political violence, okay? We're not going through a civil war. Now, it might be fun to think you're part of something that, I'm with MAGA, or I'm with her. I'm with her. I'm in the resistance against the empire. Evil Donald Trump. It feels good to be part of something. It feels good to be in the collective, to be included. I understand that from looking at all the collectivists out there that, and they just want to throw you in a group. That's their default position. You're part of the group. You talk to somebody else. You're associated with them. You're guilty. But you can't. No sane person picks up a gun. No rational person. No good person picks up a gun and shoots another person for no reason at all. Self-defense is one thing. Okay, that's why I say everybody should be armed. Everybody should get gun safety training and learn gun control. And I'm not talking about disarming Americans when I say gun control. I'm talking about learning to aim, learning to shoot, learning to defend yourself using the weapons that are available. Because even if we outlaw these weapons, even if we outlaw them, only the outlaws will have guns. People that buy things from a hotel room in the black market, they're not going to be abiding by your background checks. Any assault weapons banned, they're not going to be abiding by that. Like, that's just going to harm the law-abiding citizens. Now, of course, there are arguments that say, if you get rid of more of these semi-automatic or automatic weapons, which is an amorphous term because you can mod a weapon and change it from, non-automatic to semi, or semi to auto, all the way auto. And then you have your 3D printed guns, and you have drones, the technology of drones, which can shoot people and kill them. Those are out there, of course. You can have people can make bombs. They can create their own guns, too. These things are always going to be available. So to make them less available to law-abiding citizens that are just looking to protect themselves may not be the best way to go. So I don't want to give any policy advice, but I'll say this, that I don't think that guns should ever be prohibited on a federal level. If the states want to use their sovereignty, their states' rights to enact gun control laws, and by that I do mean, restricting guns. If they want to do that, that's their choice. A/B test. Find out if it's a good idea. Okay, I don't think it is, but it's your choice. That's your right as an American. As a state and as an individual, you have liberty and you have freedom. You have choice. So use it. So, observing the various people and groups waging our latest linguistic war, fighting fire with fire, I'm reminded that one possible result of such an approach is that everything ends up on fire. Not the best outcome until you consider the application of fire as blight removal. So, I am tiring to a degree. I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at political news, searching political forums, reading articles, listening to people talk on YouTube and BitChute, listening on social media, talking on social media, and just looking at all these different people and their linguistic war. Who can win the war of language? Who can win the war of symbolism, of memetics? Who can do it? But you have a lot of hypocrisy, or, you have a lot of, to call out hypocrisy is to quote. It is an appeal to hypocrisy. It is a logical fallacy. Because, like I say in another one of my videos, that once everybody's doing something, if you have both sides, if it's the left and the right doing something, well, it gets neutralized as something to worry about because both sides are doing it. If someone says, oh, this happened on the left, you had violence. On the left, you had evil, irrational, malevolent behavior. And then, people will say, there it is. There's your violence right there. And then on the right, you'll see there's violence. Someone pulled out a gun. Someone pulled out their fists. They pulled out a knife. They pulled out a bomb. Whatever it might be. Left, right, they're all people. A lot of these folks, these evil doers, these bad hombres, like the Dayton, Ohio shooter and the El Paso shooter, their manifestos show a mix of what they would call conservative and progressive or leftist ideology. The shooter in El Paso, I believe, was a registered Democrat, but you have the Democrats saying that he was a Republican. They even changed his page. And the people on the right, they're not quick to come to the defense of the victims sometimes. When it comes to domestic acts of terror, sometimes people are just, we're all desensitized, but sometimes people just don't come to their defense. And over here, they're doing the same thing. If Antifa punches somebody, you have people on the left running interference for them, giving the people in the media giving them moral cover. Everybody has their issue with this. It's a bipartisan. It's not like a partisan issue. It's not just one side. So when I say, I point out violence, sometimes that comes as a result of just being a counterforce to the inertia of the moral cover. If the media isn't reporting it, then as a independent journalist, as a broadcast journalism graduate, and that's true, by the way, I hold a certification in broadcast journalism, I am feeling a little obligated to report on what I am seeing. I want to get the word out there. I want to get the information out there that isn't being reported. And that goes for all sides. I don't hold any sort of resentment or any sort of bias. I have my political bias. Yes, I spend more time at this point in the center and a bit more on the right. I have a bunch of things on the left that I still take in. A lot of great content creators, Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, and so on and so forth. We have Bullshit Man. All these different voices that I like to listen to. Kyle Kalinske. And many more. And on the right, and libertarian. It's we all have our bias. But I am not going to just talk about when there's a shooting or a beating on one side. I'm not going to point to the other side, the side that I'm less favored. I prefer less. I'm not going to point to them and say, you're at fault. You voting the way you do is at fault. Your president is at fault. Your congresswomen are at fault. I don't do that. Sometimes we fall into a trap of doing that. But I've tried to make it my goal not to do that. Because when we're fighting fire with fire, when we're using hyperbole, when we're using, hateful sort of emotionally charged speech, people get hurt. They get hurt to the point where they can act on that pain. You can cause someone to hurt. Now, I'm not a member of the culture of nice. I'm not saying, don't troll people, have a good time, do what you want to do. But you can't harass people. And you have to be a little bit sensitive. I think that I'm not trying to police I know some people will watch this video and say, well, he's trying to police speech. I'm not trying to police speech. I'm just trying to give you a tip so you don't get kicked out and then I have to say sorry for you. If you get kicked out from these censorious bastards on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, I have to defend you, man. So I'm telling you ahead of time, try to be a little bit nicer, and don't just come at people with, you're wrong, fuck off. Like, that's not really conducive to intellectual discussion. So everything ends up on fire when everybody's throwing fire at each other. Not the best outcome until you consider the application of fire as blight removal. So, some of them, they get their suspensions if they're really inserting a whole lot of hate, like real hate and irrational hatred into the dialogue. They are being treated justly according to those communities. I'm not the one to judge. When I'm talking about censorship, people often point me to an XKCD comic that I find to be a bit myopic. And that is to say that it only focuses on the household aspect. And that's what I was focusing on here. I'm saying if you want to kick somebody out for being a bastard, and it's your page, your forum, if it's fair, if it goes against the rules, I say get them out. We have to have rules to get by, but there has to be positive authority, not negative authority, not just throwing people out because you happen to disagree with them, but actually making sure that everybody's happy, that the average experience is something that we can all enjoy. And again, now I sound like, and again, I'll say two things. Now I sound like the Twitter terms of service, and that's why you shouldn't trust anybody that tries to define free speech, including me. Don't listen. Only you can really define what you think should be the acceptable range of dialogue in the Overton window.